also one of your best players.
I know.
That's who Daniel Jones is, by the way, when he's healthy.
I know history doesn't really matter sometimes in your mind, but I want to give you perspective on your decision as Joe Schoen. That would, and you fact check me on this if I'm wrong, that would be the highest pick in the history of the New York Giants in terms of taking a wide receiver.
Ike Hilliard was 7?
7. He is, I think, the only other wide receiver taken nearly that high in the history of the franchise. Odell Beckham Jr. went 12. Ike Hilliard went 7.
Yep.
So understand, when you take this wide receiver, you are putting that kind of pressure on him.
I don't care about this.
And when you draft a guy that high, you don't need that guy to be good. You need that guy to be great.
And here's the thing, and we talked about this multiple times already. The bust rate of wide receivers in the first round is high. It's like 60%, 60+%. Hey, we got a first-round wide receiver. He's going to be a star. Well, going back to data back to 2011, it's kind of a 63% bust rate, meaning you could have drafted somebody else or straight up bust, never going to make it, including a guy that the Giants took in the first round that we all know and remember, Kadarius Toney. So it's really hard to find those wide receivers in the first round, despite the fact that seems like there's a lot of wide receivers that come into the league. However, when I look at Marvin Harrison Jr., when I look at Malik Neighbors, when I look at Rome Odunze, those three are about as bust-proof as I've ever seen. And it's not a guarantee because injuries could create the bust, right? But to me, those three guys feel like whoever takes them is going to get the Justin Jefferson or the CD Lamb or whatever big time wide receiver you can think of that's come out the last couple of years. That's who those guys feel like. And I don't want to say it's a sure bet because it never is, but to me it feels like a sure bet. And if I'm the Giants, I need a sure bet at skill playmaking player in this draft. And one of these wide receivers does it. I happen to like Rome Odunze the best because of what I saw at the Combine.
So we come in here Friday morning after the Knicks go up 3-1, after the Islanders make it a series against Carolina, and Rome Odunze is your first-round pick. Sean Morash, your reaction at 2:05 on WFAN will be?
It depends.
I mean, it depends.
It depends.
Because it's going to play into what I want to happen in the draft.
All right, what do you want to have happen?
Okay.
If you're Joe Schoen,
And this is-
Sean
you'll understand what I
Morash,
mean.
Shane, go ahead.
All right.
If I'm Joe Schoen, it feels more real today than it felt a week ago. I am moving whatever I have to go get Drake May at 3rd or 4th overall. Because that will give Jalen Hyatt and Wan'Dale Robinson their best chance to be playmakers. And that'll get this team closer to being the true competitor that Brian Dable and Joe Schoen deserve. And that would excite me the most.
I don't know if you guys saw it, but Tiki had a physical and audible gost at Sean's plan. You don't like that?
No.
And you like May.
Of course I like
But you don't want
May.
to trade up for him?
I don't know what it's going to cost. And the longer it gets, the more it's going to cost. And meaning you're right up to your pick or the second pick in the draft, because I'm assuming Caleb Williams is going first. By the way, I'm calling that a bust with Chicago.
Wow, okay.
It's just I don't think he knows football well enough, and I think he just kind of figures it out as he goes. Just saying. All right. It's neither here nor there. It's not our problem, either of our problems, thankfully. But I don't know what it's going to take to move up to number 2. And because think about it, 6-2, it doesn't feel like it's a long
I'm talking
way.
about 3. I'm assuming Jaden Daniels to Washington. That's where it seems all the smoke is
like,
right now.
I don't know. Whatever way, 2 or 3. You go to 2, you get guaranteed whoever you want. 3, either one. It's not a long way to go, but it's an expensive way to go, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so Washington,
especially with a $40 million quarterback already on your roster.
But that's my
and again,
one.
That can go away, but there's still dead money. So even if it's $40 million this year, it's going to be 40 something next year. Also.
I know, but that's the caveat. Like, I hear what you're saying. All right, I hear, and you have to love the player. Let's make that clear.
Yes,
definitely.
As much as the Giants need a quarterback, and they need a quarterback of the future, and they need a quarterback for right now, it is irresponsible to say, I don't care who the quarterback is, go draft him. Because when you do that, you end up with my problem. You end up with Zach Wilson. Now, as just a fan, not a scout, I happen to agree with you, Tiki, that the one quarterback that would excite me, that would get me all giddy, that would get me pumped up, that gives me hope, is Drake May. That's the guy. Now, I also admit I was giddy and believed in Sam Darnold. I didn't really believe in Zach Wilson, but I believed it. So I don't know, and none of us know.
None of us
All you got to do is look at last year's NFL draft.
Right.
So I agree with you that that's the quarterback that would enamor me. But here's where we disagree. If I'm enamored by a guy, if you're enamored by the guy, I'm on that phone with New England if they're serious about trading back, and I'm trying to make it happen. Because one thing we saw 20 years ago today, and I don't know what's going to happen at 4 o'clock, but there are rumblings that this guy's name's going to be called again at 4 o'clock.
Right.
The New York Giants moved a lot to get Eli Manning.
Yes, they did.
Because they believed in him, and of course he wanted to be here, and I think we'd all admit that it worked out. When it comes to that position, if you get it right, it does not matter what you gave up.
100%.
Okay. So if you agree it doesn't matter what you gave up as long as you got it right, and you believe in Drake May, which it appears like you do,
yes.
Why not aggressively try to make that deal happen unless you think the Patriots are just fugazi
Honestly,
and are really not moving the pick?
Because I like Daniel Jones.
Oh, stop.
I'm just telling you.
As a person?
You're asking me, well, obviously as a person.
We all love him as a person.
But I'm talking about as a player.
Right.
I truly and genuinely like Daniel Jones as a player. I think he is a solid leader. I think he works his ass off. I think he'll do whatever it takes to be successful. The only thing that holds him back is his health. And look, trust me, I know this because it took me 5 years to figure out how to stay healthy in the league. Sometimes you just don't know. Aaron Judge still can't figure it out. It's been 8 years, right, in Major League Baseball. And so to me, I want to have faith in the guy that I put faith in 2 years ago or 2 seasons ago, which was Dave's first year. They trusted him. He went out and proved it. He got hurt last season, and now we just don't know. He's in another prove-it situation. I kind of like players in prove-it situations. And Daniel Jones has already been paid, but it's not going to affect the way that he tries to prove himself. So there's something about that I like. And not enough to swallow that money to go trade up, use other money to go get a guy that I really like at number 2. So it's just not worth it to me. It's just not worth it.
It's always worth it if you're right about the player. Obviously, if we're wrong about the player, then it's never worth it. Then it's a wasted draft pick. And, of course, it's wasted draft capital that you used to trade up and get the guy. But the quarterback position, and the reason we spend such an inordinate amount of time talking about it, is because it is the most important. And I look at this draft and this moment with Joe Schoen as an opportunity. The Giants are picking 6, and I know that there's a lot of hope in fans' eyes that they will not be picking 6 next year, that they will have a good year. What does a good year look like? I don't know. I guess we'll figure that out. But the hope is they're not picking this high. So when you are picking this high, there's an opportunity in front of you. And if they don't take it or don't draft a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round that they project as someone for the future, then we're probably having the same song and dance next year.
Yep.
That's the risk I have. Now,
and to me, that's okay. To me, that's okay.
What do you do if that's okay?
Especially if you get a super stud talent.
A wide receiver, who's throwing him the ball, though? Drew Lock, if Daniel Jones gets hurt again?
It becomes Dak Prescott next year.
No, I was going to say that.
There's no way it's going to be Dak. I mean, I know that's an interesting talking point just because it feels like it's interesting. It's not. It's actually really stupid. So it's not happening. It will be some quarter. If they're bad enough that they're in the top 10 again, there will be a quarterback drafted.
You know what I realize, though? I'll tell you this right now. The next time you bother me with something innocuous, maybe it's something about the Nets, maybe it's something about the Mets, I'm just going to randomly say the Giants should sign Dak Prescott. That's going to be my hot button return to you.
It's probably going to be about the Islanders. Just saying.
Oh, great. Hey, they made a goalie change. Here comes Sorokin. Let's see what he's got. Now, if I get this straight, Sean, if you're Joe Schoen, you are moving heaven and earth to trade up and get Drake May. Did I take you right? What would you do if you're Joe Schoen?
If I was Joe Schoen, I'd move heaven and earth. And this is why I'm okay with more than okay with Roma Dunze, Malik Neighbors, whoever they fit the best receiver. If New England is going to stay there and take Drake May, then clearly that's not 2 to tango, and they couldn't move heaven and earth to get him. But what the Giants can't allow to happen is Minnesota does that, and they have in their conference the quarterback of their dreams, quarterback of the future. Because the other part because I'm with TK, I like Daniel Jones way more than the public does. Think about the year Daniel Jones is going to have both health-wise and play-wise for the Giants to not exercise that out in that contract, which will only cost them, by the way, $22 million.
Right.
That year would have to, we're talking about a guy in the top 8 in the MVP cat. For them to not pull the trigger on getting out of that, So when I take all of that into account, to me, the cost becomes irrelevant if you could turn your franchise around and actually hit on the quarterback you have targeted and dreamed of.
So right now, I, as the IFO, say you go big after the quarterback, specifically Drake May. Sean, as the diehard Giant fan, says the same. Will it be 3? What does Boomer call non-athletes again?
NARPs.
Will it be 3 NARPs in a row saying, go get me the quarterback? Let's find out from the returning Tommy Lugauer. You're Joe Shane. What do you do?
If Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors are there, I run to the podium to draft one of them. I think they translate the best of the NFL. Me personally, I think Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels are the best 2 quarterbacks. If you could find one of them, if you could trade up to get one of them, I'm happy. If not, I take the wide receiver and I get Penix. I figure out a way to trade back into the first, figure out a way to get Penix. He's your 3rd quarterback. You're not risking as much drafting him in the top 10. They need a big-time stud receiver. They have no weapons on offense. I don't want to hear about Robinson.
So you're more like me.
Yes.
Right.
I'm siding with Teak on this one.
Right.
Siding with you.
Well,
Does that make you feel good?
Here's the reality. Like, the teams that do best have a good quarterback or a good enough quarterback and then talent all around that quarterback. Now, I know we get skewed because of the unicorn that is Patrick Mahomes right now, and it makes us believe that you got to have a Pat Mahomes. There's not many Pat Mahomeses. I know what people think that I don't know, Caleb Williams is going to be the next Pat Mahomes. Trust me, he's not. Right? Jaden Daniels is not going to be it, at least not early. And Drake May, he probably is going to take 2 or 3 years to figure out how to play in an NFL offense. And so, to me, I look at a team with the Giants who made a lot of offseason moves to get themselves win-ready now. You know what I mean? Like, we need to win now. We can't afford to have a 3-14 season. And so, you're not going to do that by drafting a quarterback unless you're truly resetting. But all of the moves that Joe Shane has made this offseason in free agency maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misinterpreting what Joe Shane is doing. But as a logical football analyst, it doesn't make sense that he's resetting his team for a young quarterback. It's not what this looks like. It looks like he's gearing it up to go take some stud who's going to walk into the locker room. Everybody's going to be like, that dude is mad. That's the man, right? And then Daniel Jones stays healthy, and they thrive, and they accelerate, and they become a team to be reckoned with. It doesn't feel like a rebuilding team to me, right? I think the offseason tells you a lot. When you look at teams that did nothing, like the New England Patriots, for instance, that feels like a team that's, all right, we got to reset and take a quarterback. The Giants aren't that. So, like, I'm half basing my opinion on who the Giants should take based on what Joe Shane has already done. Right? You don't bring in, John Runyon and Illuminor and even Aaron Stinney, even though I don't know if he'll start it out, but whatever. It is what it is. Right? You don't go trade for Brian Burns and say, hey, man, we're just going to suck for a year while you and Kayvon get that sack dance together that they were doing on the boat down in Miami, whatever the heck they were doing. Like, we're gonna toll it for a year so you guys can just work that out. And then in 2025, we're going to be really good. It doesn't make sense to me. Right? To me, they're building a team to win now. And so how do you enhance that? You go get one of the top 3 wide receivers in this draft, and I happen to love Rome Odunze.
We'll get to your calls next, 877-337-6666. Plus, as a Jet fan, I give you my endorsement as a fan on what I want Joe Douglas to do tomorrow night when the Jets are on the clock.